Welcome back to my channel. So the first story we're going to read is r/NuclearRevenge. This one is titled How a Friendship Was Broken. Now this story is 100% true, and I even left in the parts that I didn't really want to admit to. I depict violence in this story, so if you have trouble with that, you might not want to read this. Now I don't know if this story will fit proper in this subreddit, nor if anyone will like it. It is not a story of me at my best, but it is revenge. Now, I was 18 years old in 2001 and just started getting into the party scene. I like the drugs, I like the dance music. I'm an introvert, and I was trying to become social. During this time, I met some friends. John became my best friend for a decade, and Brian. At the time, I had just totaled my car, so John would give me a ride, and we did everything together. He liked the same sports as me, was very giving, and was down to do all the crazy shit that I would impulsively want to do. As a thanks to him for being such a good friend, I would pay for gas and drugs. Damn. At the time, I was dealing cocaine and ecstasy. Not major dealing, but I usually had drugs, and John would never pay for what I gave him. Oh, so y'all for real, for real. Brian was a rave child, already pretty burnt out from drugs, but he was a lot of fun. Knew a lot of people, introduced me to the rave scene. Now, I worked and was dealing on the side, so I had okay money. I would start paying for Brian to get into clubs and for drugs sometimes. He was kind of a mooch though, so I started cutting him off. Then things started going missing. He stole my expensive sunglasses, he stole drugs and money from me. He stole from other dealers, and there were people looking for him. I finally cut him out of my life when he stole some ecstasy from me and fed it to a girl so he could have sex with her. Now this girl and I had already hung out 2 weeks and we made out, but I'm slow to make moves. I'm an introvert and I don't have many relationships, and Brian had a beautiful girlfriend who is a part of our friend group and pulls this type of crap. A couple weeks later, I see his girlfriend at the bank and I say, F Brian. And just so you know, he cheated on you. I ain't gonna lie, that's pretty ballsy. Now, she came over to my house to talk about it, and later that night, she and I hooked up. Now, two wrongs don't make a right, but let's keep reading. I guess it was a revenge sex for her to get back at Brian. I was hoping it would be more than that. Now, something like a month later, I get a call from Brian saying that he heard I'm selling some ecstasy and acid and says he wants to buy it. Now the phone call felt off. I was pretty sure that he was up to something. I told him to come stop by to get it. Now John was with me and had a 45 in his truck. I told him to go get it since this felt off. Now he grabbed it and stuffed it in his waistband, and we waited for Brian to show up. Brian shows up with two friends. We talk a little bit. He hands me some money for the drugs. I hand him the drugs, and then he brings up that he heard I slept with his girlfriend. I told him if he wants to talk about this or handle it, let's go over here and handle it. Just then, one friend tackles John to the ground. The other pins me. John is fighting the other guy while my arms are pinned behind me, and Brian is punching and kicking me in the face. I had some earrings, and he ripped them out of my ear. He then steals the rest of my drugs I had on me, but leaves the money he just gave me for the drugs he pays for. Douche. And all three of them take off running. Now I go to pull the 45 from John's waistband, but he blocks me from grabbing it and then tells me it's not worth it. Now I find out the next day that the whole reason Brian did this was for a quick fix before he left town. Now that night, he was on his way across the country to live with his sister. I was livid. I thought about finding out where he was living and driving there myself with my 38 special. I was so angry. It was affecting my sleep and all my waking moments. Now for months and months, this went on. 10 months later, I'm at a friend's house. When there is a knock on the door, I turn as the door is open, and it's Brian. He says, "Is Michael here?" Then noticed me and says, "Never mind." Slams the door and runs. I found out that he burned all of his bridges at his sister's house and had to move back with his parents. Now a week later, I go to my friend's house and have him call Brian over. Now John talks me into leaving my gun in the car. He had a small pat to regulate with, but I told him that this was between Brian and I told him to stay back unless things go bad for me. Now they did some coke. John gave some coke and we were ready to go. The house had a 20-foot walkway to it with railings, and a car was parked at the end of it and had tinted windows. We waited in the car until Brian walked up to the door. Then I charged out of the car and ran at him fast as I could. "Oh crap," Brian said. "Oh crap is right." Now I said as I smashed him as hard as I could in the face. Now we fought for a minute while John stood at the end of the walkway with a bat in his hand. Now Brian had one good punch on me, and I ended up chipping a tooth from that. The cocaine made me bite down too hard when he hit me. Now he then made a run for John and punches him in the face. John wasn't having it, so he pulled the bat out and started beating him. Brian fights him for the bat, but John is stronger and rips it out of his hand and then passes it to me. Now I started beating him with the bat as he fought John. Now I'll give Brian credit though. I told him to lay down and this would go a lot easier, but he stayed up fighting the whole time. Now I started wailing into the back of his head, and I could see the bruises appear on his back as soon as I hit him. He finally went down and I cracked him in the head and fractured his skull. Damn. And then once he went down, John punted his head like a 50-yard field goal. Brian was done. As he is bleeding on the porch, Brian then asked if he can be friends again since we're even. I was like, what the heck? No. Now he then asked what he has to do so he can leave. I told him to leave his clothes and walk home. "You want me to leave my clothes?" "No. I want you to leave them here and go home." He stripped to his boxers and walked home on a cold October day with snow on the ground. I ain't gonna lie, that's pretty cold. Literally. Well, I thought we were dealing with this like they do in the streets. He robs me and beats me, so I beat the crap out of him. But no, he goes home to his parents' house and then calls the cops on me. So the cops come and arrest John and I. So I took as much as the blame as I could so John wouldn't go to jail for as long as I did. But he did end up doing some time. Now, that is ironic. Now, I hate jail and prisons, but that night I was able to sleep knowing that Brian was sleeping in a hospital. Now, this story is 20 years old now. Since then, I've never had another friend that takes advantage of me. Brian was the one who taught me a valuable lesson. Don't invite people like that into your life. I dealt with a lot of anger issues back then, but I've never beat another person like this again, and I've learned how to handle my anger better. Now, I honestly don't like fighting, but I was so good to this friend who just kept taking and then mugs me. I no longer deal drugs or use them, except smoking weed. Now, ain't nothing wrong with a little weed. Now, that doesn't stop me from fucking up still, though, since this wasn't the last time I was arrested. I'm not gonna lie, that's pretty messed up. Like, you get a good friend, or at least you think they're a good friend, but it turns out that they're not. They're just using you. And I've had similar experiences like that with people, But the problem is, when you're nice or just an overall good person, good people get taken advantage of. Now, usually, they don't do too much about being taken advantage of, but I'm like, I feel like you're justified with like whooping his ass the way that you did. Now, on the scale from 1 to 5, 1 being the least amount of burnt toast, 5 being the most burnt black toast, I'm gonna give your now ex beat the fuck up friend, I'm gonna give him a 5. And I say that because he's had ample time to get his life right. And you were initially a good friend to him. Now, when you initially cut him off, that should have been some type of warning sign. Like, hey, my friend is obviously upset with me. Then you should have thought about having a talk with you. Or something. Not just letting things just be done. Because that doesn't solve anything. And then he has the audacity to come back and just be like, hey, let's meet up. Or such and such. He knew there was not going to be any type of meetup when he came looking for you. But he came looking for that ass whooping, and that's exactly what the fuck he got. Now, I am interested to know, like you said, this wasn't the last time that you were arrested. So I feel like there's like more stories to that, but I didn't see any additional posts. So next I'm going to go down to like the comment section. I'm going to read a couple of the comments. So the first I see is from Competitive Video 53. Says, this is quite a story, man. I'm glad to know that you got back at that asshole. But how are you doing, man? I just want to know if you're doing okay, because you said that this was not the last time that you were arrested. See? Inquiring minds would like to know. All right, and the next is going to come from Dignified Dingo OP. So the original poster. As I said, another comment. I am on parole after running from the cops on a sport bike and crashing in excess of 125 miles per hour. And I've had a felon in possession of a firearm charge before that. Damn. The hell you been doing? Now, I appreciate the concern, but I'm not a career criminal and would like to put all this getting arrested stuff behind me. But like I once explained to a friend who said he didn't understand how I could be arrested so much just before he was arrested that weekend, sometimes you go to jail. I'm not gonna lie, that is kind of funny. Just end it with sometimes you go to jail. Alright, so that's gonna be the end of this video, how a friendship was broken. And then it was by you/Dignified Dingo. Now, if you'd like to hear more stories like this, and I will be posting other types of stories, not just for the Nuclear Revenge, but I do like those a lot. You can always drop a comment, let me know what you want to hear next, or drop some suggestions, or just drop an opinion. All right, the next story is posted by Word_nerd. The title is Still My Meds, Enjoy Divorce, Jail, Joblessness, and Sleeping in Your Car. 16 years ago, I made a friend one day on the bus. Up until about a year ago, I considered this guy a member of my family. Let's call this guy Joel. So I keep a crystal bowl on the mantle above my fireplace, full of my medical marijuana. I started noticing that after poker night, my bowl seemed a lot emptier than it should, so I set up a camera to see which of my guests was helping themselves when my back was turned. Next poker night, once everyone was gone, I pulled up the video. There Joel was, plain as day, stuffing like $60 worth of my medication into his pocket. I sent him the video and told him that he had to return my medication or pay for it. And I told him that if he chose to do neither, then he should no longer consider himself a friend to me. He denied it. Even with the video staring him in the face, he said he hadn't taken anything. He even had the nerve to act offended by the fact that I accused him, so I decided to ruin his life. Over the years, he had told me a lot of things he didn't want his wife to know. Affairs, shady shit he did with their joint funds, drug issues, terrible things he said about her, her mother, and her sister. I went back through all of our messages and took screenshots of everything secret he had ever said to me. There were over 70 pictures. Good grief. I sent her the screenshots. Here are some examples of the kind of stuff that was in the screenshots. He admitted to cheating on her with 8 different women over the course of our relationship, taking out money that they were saving for a car and using it to buy drugs, specifically Xanax and Perks, usually the popular ones. The fact that he was continuing to do drugs after he promised her that he was clean and sober. Some of the things he said about her family. She's a vile, disgusting woman, and the reason they never have sex is that he can't stand the smell in between her folds. Oh, come on, that's just rude. He also said he was pretty sure she was molesting her niece. What the fuck? He said that all of her friends only pretend to like her so they can buy oxys off of her. Also, as I'm editing this, I just remember that he said he wanted to get one of his side chicks pregnant because he'd always resented his wife for being infertile. Her sister is an insane harpy. Her sister abuses her kids. This is not true, but he said it. Her sister is faking her autoimmune disease for attention. Her mom is a fat, lazy cow who doesn't actually need to be in a wheelchair. She just likes not having to stand up or bathe herself. So she's, this is pronounced mollygoring, I assume. There are more things, but what came to mind without having to dig through the screenshots I sent? She filed for divorce and reported him to the police for the drugs he had in their house. Now, while he was doing his 8 months in jail for the pot that he stole from me, his boss filled his position and he lost his job. His now ex-wife won't let him in her house. Now he lives in a car and showers at truck stops. Now, found out about in the aftermath, some came from his ex-wife. She told me about the divorce, kicking him out and getting him arrested. Some came from a guy, Joel, and I used to both be friends with, who works at the place Joel used to work. He told me about the jobless, car living, and the truck stop thing. I'm still on good terms with his ex-wife. Now, I even sent her some enchiladas the other day for Cinco de Mayo. I also sent a video to all of our mutual friends, so he lost 90% of his social circle. I cut that other 10% out of my life since they want to associate with unknown thieves. Birds of a feather flock together. Alright, so next down in the comment section, Sky_High8422 said it the best. Over the years, he had told me a lot of things that he didn't want his wife to know. Affairs, shady shit he did with their joint funds, drug issues, terrible things he said about her, her mother, and her sister. Honestly, my dude, if you still consider him a friend after he did that shitty stuff to other people, that's on you. Now, if you watch someone do shitty stuff to other people, don't act surprised when they do shitty stuff to you. And then, underneath that, from Terrible Human, he says, yeah, I mean, I totally get the revenge on this asshole, but what I don't understand is continuing to be friends with such a garbage person and being surprised when they do shit to you. Now, both are correct, because if it looks like a duck, it quacks like a duck. It's a fucking duck. You knew he wasn't shit as a person, and you still continue to be friends with him. So yeah, I totally agree. Why would you act so surprised to think that he wouldn't do it to you? Because that doesn't make any sense. If anything, you brought it upon yourself because you had the option to not be his friend after you saw the shitty stuff that he does. All right, and next is another comment. I think it's pronounced get. So it's GETTE_N_Rue. And they posted, absolutely true. When you see someone behave like a piece of shit to others, why be surprised when they do the same thing to you? Stop condoning and listening. It translates to supporting their crappy behavior. And that's true. Just like when people say, if you hang around dogs, you wake up with fleas. Or the other saying, if you hang around some hoes, you a hoe too. So yeah, you shouldn't be surprised that he basically fucked you over. Initially, it is somewhat of your problem too, only because you enabled it. You still listen to all this shit, and you didn't specify whether or not, like you had told him, like, don't say this about your wife, don't say this about her family, or whatnot. So initially, you get some of the blame, but your ex-friend, on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being the most burnt toast, he gets a fucking 5. You, on the other hand, you get a 2. And I say that because you enabled that behavior. You knew he wasn't shit, but you still was his friend. And then you wanted to wait to spill all the beans until after y'all weren't friends anymore. I'm like, if that's the case, you shouldn't have said anything. If that's the case, you didn't tell them what happened initially when all the shit hit the fan. So why create a big scene now and just wait until everything is already festered? Then you want to let his wife know. Then you want to let her sister know and all that other stuff. So that's just my thoughts on it. So whatever. It ain't my life. Also, feel free to send me stories if you want me to talk about a specific story. Also, leave a like, comment, and don't forget to subscribe because I need some more subscribers. The struggle is real. And other than that, I'll see you guys in the next video.